Speakers at a U.S. Congressional briefing on 15 July hailed Bangladesh's 2024 July uprising as a historic break from authoritarian rule. The speakers urged the U.S. to support ongoing reforms, human rights, and deeper bilateral ties to ensure a stable, democratic future. The event at Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. was hosted by the Bangladesh America Alliance, Right to Freedom, and Bangladesh Research and Analysis and Information Network, BRAIN. It convened policymakers, members of Congress, and scholars for a conversation on democracy, governance, and international relations in post-revolution Bangladesh. The event was titled Bangladesh 2.0 Democracy, Reform, and Global Engagement, where speakers discussed the country's transformation and future direction. The program opened with remarks by John Danilovich, president of Right to Freedom. He underscored the significance of the July 2024 uprising and the democratic journey ahead.
We don't have an agenda in terms of pushing forward any political party, any Bangladesh entity, any American entity. We're here to provide information. So I'm confident that from our panelists, we hear a diversity of views, and that's a good thing. So if our panelists take a slightly different perspective on issues, you can tell that we're doing what we wanted to do.
Congressman Lloyd Doggett delivered the keynote. He addressed the authoritarian legacy of the Awami League and called for U.S. support for democratic progress in South Asia.
There have been people in Bangladesh, in that case, some massacred because of their defense of the Bengali language by Pakistanis, who have been seeking freedom, seeking the same kind of rights we expect to have here in America.
Congressman Jim McGovern emphasized human rights and U.S. engagement in the region.
We must also be clear-eyed about what's at stake. What Bangladesh does next will not only shape the future of its 170 million people, it will send a signal to the region and the world about whether peaceful democratic transitions can succeed in the face of repression.
Farhana Sultana, co-chair of the Bangladesh America Alliance, reflected on the revolution's ongoing impact.
What we call the July Revolution, another July has come. And yet, what have we accomplished? What are the challenges? What are the risks and pitfalls? What are the hopes and aspirations and possibilities and accomplishments, little known or well celebrated? Those are the kinds of issues that we're going to try to touch upon.
Two dynamic panels followed, ending with reflections and calls for stronger U.S.-Bangladesh ties. Speakers lauded the courage shown during the July Revolution and the hope it continues to inspire. The first panel was moderated by Farhana Sultana, featured Catherine Cooper from RFK Human Rights and Orani Shemunti Khan from Jagannath University.
Following the regime change in August 2024, there is now the extremely difficult task of pursuing meaningful transitional justice in line with international standards, along with many institutional and legal reforms to the Constitution, the judiciary, the security sector, all within time prior to the elections in 2026.
So into a year of July, thinking about the experiences is painful, and also it's taking away 2 minutes of my 6 minutes. So as I was saying, I come from, I would say I have been privileged throughout the few weeks of non-stop violence that we have faced.
It also featured Dina Siddiqui from the NYU, who assessed the interim government's reforms and prospects for long-term stability.
The young women, in particular, they stepped in when their male peers went missing. They modeled for us how to speak truth to power. And I was there throughout the whole time, on the streets sometimes, not like you, but, watching them speak on TV, their analysis was razor sharp. They were showing us a different face of empowerment, not empowerment as in microcredit, but I think the fruits of many years of state and NGO attention, perhaps, but also the inheritance of Bengal, where
the second panel was moderated by Shamaruk Mohiuddin from the Cadmus Group and included retired Ambassador Daniel Mozana, Michael Kugelman from Foreign Policy, and Mushumi Khan from the Asia Group.
It's a tough question because everything is so fluid right now. Look at Dhaka, look at Washington. There's a lot of moving pieces here. So there's no clear, easy answer to Shamaruk's very good question. So I thought what I would try to do is just take a look at some of the recent developments, try to look at the context so we can understand better the U.S.-Bangladesh evolving bilateral relationship. Big, surprising things are happening in both countries. We just heard in some detail about the July revolution in Bangladesh.
The main one involves India. Hasina had special relations with, or I should say, special relationship with Modi and Modi's India and the BJP, but also, let's not forget, with the Indian opposition. I mean, if you look at Hasina's family, her father had close ties with the Congress, with the Gandhi family.
But at this time, the U.S. government made a tactical decision. The decision the U.S. government took was to take a hands-off approach. And at that time, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina knew she had India at her back. And so she went all in against Dr. Yunus, against a lot of these movements. And the reason I mention that, not just because I was an intern and a disciple of the whole, working at Grameen, etc., but really because it had ramifications of where she knew how much she could push.
Shamul Haq from American University discussed Bangladesh's evolving geopolitical strategy and global partnerships.
That sort of set the stage for what we saw a year earlier in July and August, where finally we could go to the world and show what was going on. That people are being shot in the streets for, demanding their human rights, for demanding their constitutional rights. So with that context, I think a lot of what I said now pertains to Bangladesh's relationship with the US, that Bangladesh has looked to the US as a font of democracy, rule of law, and human rights.
The event was attended by policymakers, think tanks, diaspora members, journalists, academics, and the private sector.
So with that, I'd like to start my little speech. So today, many have spoken about the crisis we have faced. But as we close this gathering, I want to shift focus from challenge to possibility, from reaction to reinvention. Because resilience is not enough, we need reinvention, rooted in economic sovereignty, democratic values, and strategic partnership between Bangladesh and the United States.
The speakers of the dialogue reinforced the need for continued advocacy, research, and international collaboration.